Hi, John Keim, 1103 Washington Street. I do suffer from a long memory and being middle class. I'll apologize for both at the outset. I know earlier John Gordon got criticized for politicizing things, but I think it's important to think about this budget vis-a-vis 6 years ago simply because we are bloated. This is a lot of money. And $89 million is a lot of money for a town this size. Excuse me, $92 million is a lot of money for a town this size.
And John, we know the political side.
I understand you guys have a really
we need to solve this problem.
Not about politics, but about the fact that you guys do have a tough job. You're going to have to go line by line, which is going to suck because it's going to take you days, months. But you're going to have to take a look at every expenditure and weigh the value versus the cost versus what the community wants versus what each individual constituency wants. But if you think of it from one other perspective, and that's as just a middle-class working schlump working in retail, Terry, you perhaps can agree with this.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the budget where I voted yes on the open space. I think open space is worth it. I'll pay more taxes to cover open space in this community because we're getting drowned out by huge buildings where we ought to have parks and we ought to have more recreational facilities for everybody. I work in retail. My taxes are going to go up now probably on the Hoboken level about $750 on the two properties that I own. As we take in these pilot payments, which denies money to the school district and to the county, eventually they're going to both want to get their due. We're getting $1 million a year in state aid from Abbott funding for our pre-K program, which everybody, whether they're in rent-controlled apartments, condos, houses, or newly pilot tax-abated buildings, are sending their kids to. As soon as that ratio of people's income gets to a point where it's not fair for Hoboken to be an Abbott district, that money is going to be pulled. The state will stop giving us that $1 million, but we're still going to have that pre-K program. As a parent in public schools, I think, wait a second, these pilot programs are taken from the school kids. And now we're going to have to pay more school taxes when that's pulled. And it's not a question of if, it's a question of when, and it's sooner than later. The other issue is going to be the county services. We talk about, well, we want to do pilots because we can't trust the county. Well, heck, let's work with the county. Let's get our Board of Freeholders to answer to Hoboken. Because they're going to want their piece too, and they're not going to get it from all these abatements. If the pilot payments are so good, then other than my open space tax, my taxes ought to be going down. Because thinking of the Hoboken taxes going up about $750 a year on me next year, and the fact that I've got to conceive that maybe my school taxes in county are going to add another $250. In my retail occupation, where I'm paid based on a percentage of gross profit, I'm going to have to do $80,000 in sales to cover the taxes I'm paying next year. That's a lot of crap to sell. And it's something that this council has to think about. Not all of us get raises. We get paid based on what we do, performance-based. And you guys have to think of that when you work for us as constituents. Think about performance-based evaluations of the people that work in these departments, of how the departments function with each other, where you do have overlapping services, has been mentioned before this evening by a variety of people. And we don't want to hurt anybody and make them lose their cross-town bus service. Reevaluate how we do it. Reevaluate how you do everything. Because I got to figure out how to sell 80 grand worth of musical merchandise next year to cover my taxes so I don't go into arrears on my taxes or have to go into credit to pay taxes next year. And I don't think I'm the only person in this community or even in this room that's going to have to think about that stuff. And it's real dollars. And it's hard work and sweat, and they may not be able to do that 80 grand in business because the market's down everywhere. And that's something that we have to think about. I mean, we're talking about the fact you guys are stuck with fixed costs and insurance and pre-negotiated contracts with all the unions you deal with. But not all of us have that luxury. And I think that advertising what the benefits are to those people before the negotiations begin is a great idea. That was one of the best things that came out of this meeting, is making sure that every municipal employee, regardless of where they work, understands the value of their health benefits. These are all negotiating points. And yeah, you're forced by arbitration to take what you got, but maybe you're going to have to stick to your guns a little harder and beat things down, because we get beaten down in the private sector on a regular basis.